with Sgsat. Thank you for joining us for the Building the Geospatial Ecosystem in Singapore, co-organized by GeoWorks, Sgsat, and in partnership with Geoconnect Asia. The United Nations Initiative on Global Geospatial Information Management forecasts that the next 5 to 10 years will see significant developments in the maturity and application of well-established technologies across the geospatial industry. Among others, artificial intelligence, sensor technology, and the Internet of Things will drastically change the way in which data is being collected, managed, and maintained. What opportunities and challenges exist for geospatial innovations in Singapore and the region? How can companies in geospatial space connect better with potential partners and clients? Today, we are honored to have a panel of practitioners in the geospatial industry to share their experiences and insights with us. Before we start the event proper, allow us to share some functions of the webinar. We are making a recording of this webinar, and it will be available on Sgsat YouTube channel one day after the event. If you have any questions at any point of time, you may use the Q&A function and post in your question. Please help us to indicate your name and company name when submitting them. A selection of the questions will be answered. First up, let us welcome Jacqueline to share a few words. Jacqueline is the Assistant Director for the Industry Outreach Program at Sgsat, who manages and oversees the flagship and internationalization program. Jacqueline, please.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jacqueline. Welcome. I do see from our registration list, there are many of you who are, well, probably not Sgsat members yet, coming from GeoWorks. A lot of you are probably in the startup space. So who are we, Sgsat? We are a trade association for the tech industry in Singapore. Within this rapid evolving technology landscape, so what we strive to create is an ecosystem that helps to anticipate the trends and develops a sustainable initiatives to strengthen the community. Now we have over about 900 corporate members, ranging from startups like yourself to vibrant small and medium-sized tech enterprises, as well as your global technology companies as well. Right. So what we do in Sgsat, three key things: to advocate and represent the industry interest, and of course to look at opportunities to help our Singapore tech companies to further your business footprint locally as well as overseas market as well. So one of the key programs that I drive is actually the internationalization work that is really to help you startups or tech companies who are looking to expand regionally or internationally. So today we are happy to run this this webinar to talk a bit about geospatial space, and having GeoWorks to come, Michael, right, to share a bit about our Singapore landscape. And also we have invited Geoconnect organizer, Robert, to come in and share a little bit about the Geoconnect show in March. Tech startups and companies who are interested to participate in the show. So Sgsat has actually applied or gotten the grant approval from ESG. So if you are exhibiting or showcasing your solutions in the trade fair, then you can come to us, and we'll see how we can assist you with to help you to optimize your investment. Right. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to Jess so that we can get the session going. Jess.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacqueline. So next up, we would like to invite Lim Li Yang, Deputy Director, Geospatial and Data at Singapore Land Authority, to give his welcome address. So Li Yang supports the SLA Geospatial Division, and he is responsible for delivering the geospatial data policy Programs and Mechanisms for Singapore Spatial Data Infrastructure and Geospatial SG. Liang, please.
Thank you, Jess, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, a warm welcome joining us in today's session. I come from the SLA of the Singapore Land Authority. We are one part of the government that is driving the use of geospatial information and technology in Singapore. And we see this as an important part going forward by virtue of geospatial's ability to help us organize and understand large streams of data around us using a location as a common reference. It will help us to optimize outcomes, to create both economic and social value in the long run. Now, geospatial technology and industry certainly plays a very important role in underpinning and enabling all of this. And you hear from some of these exciting companies and panelists today from Next Billion AI, Volocopter, and Esri Singapore. Now, SLA's role is to foster a vibrant geospatial ecosystem. And we look at it through a couple of lenses. One is through data. And our role is to make available geospatial data, not only for government, for policy making, operations, and services delivery, but also for the general public and businesses as well. So we share our open data through data.gov and OneMap. And more recently, and just a quick plug, we recently launched our OneMap 3D beta as well on onemap3d.gov.sg. So do check it out later and let us have the feedback as well. The second role that we play is on capacity building. So within the government, we run the Geospatial Capability Center to deepen geospatial capabilities across the service. So we provide training, project services, advisory, etc. But at the same time, we are also working with our institutes of higher learning and schools to introduce more geospatial modules and education opportunities over time. Last but not least, an important role for us is to promote the geospatial industry, which to us is an important driver for innovation and wider adoption across sectors. To this end, we set up GeoWorks back in 2018 as an industry center to foster a vibrant geospatial ecosystem. And our aim is to create more business opportunities, to promote innovation, and to foster a vibrant community. But as a center, we are fairly young. We're just slightly over 2 years old. We are by the beginning of the journey, and we welcome you to join us in this journey. So we're excited to have opportunities like this where we can partner SG Tech, Montgomery, Geoconnect Asia, and every one of you here to engage in a discussion about the geospatial ecosystem and how we can take it forward. With that, I'll pass on the time back to Jess for the panel discussion. Thank you and have a good one.
Thank you very much, Liang. Now let us kickstart today's panel discussion on building the geospatial ecosystem in Singapore. Let's welcome Michael Sim, Pathfinder at GeoWorks, who will be moderating the session with our distinguished panelists. Michael, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Jess, and good afternoon to everyone in attendance at today's seminar or webinar. Very excited to see such a healthy audience to come in this late afternoon session to listen a little bit about what we do at GeoWorks and also a little bit of how the geospatial community is coming together itself. As Liha has already mentioned, I'm currently working at GeoWorks, and GeoWorks is basically an industry center set up to promote the use of geospatial information data and encourage the use of geospatial information and data in Singapore itself, whether it's in the industry or whether it's across governments itself. And so we have an opportunity to meet up with a lot of great partners, really good innovative partners, and we are actually happy to have 3 of our partners and friends on today's panel session today. So maybe I will take this opportunity to introduce or ask each panelist to introduce themselves, basically what they do in the company itself, and perhaps also explain a little bit about what geospatial, how geospatial is relevant to the company. So may I perhaps begin by inviting Louis Goh, who is the Chief Solutions Architect for Esri Singapore. Esri is a huge and well-known geospatial company, software company, which is also, if I believe, one of the market leaders. So I'm happy to actually have Louis to participate in today's webinar. Louis, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, thanks, Michael, and thanks Sgtech as well as GeoWorks SLA for this opportunity. Right, I'm Louis. I'm taking care of the solutions team in Esri Singapore. So just a little bit about our company, right? So Esri was founded by Jack and Laura Dingerman in 1969. So that's about 51 years now, right? So back in the days where the idea of computer mapping barely existed. So, just imagine the times where people started and trying to put that digital idea into put that map into the digital frame, right? So that was the big idea that we had. So that was Jack's keen interest, which was to combine the map making as well as the computers. So now 50 years later, the same idea and interest has spurred the evolution of our modern day GIS, right? It's not only about digitizing the map, right? Geospatial has become a way of life. It impacts the way we live, where we live, and as well as how to improve our communities, understand and improve our communities. Right. So thank you. And back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Louis. Next is AJ Bulusu. He's the co-founder of NextBillion.ai. He is zooming in directly from India, if I'm not wrong. AJ?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to introduce what NextBillion AI is, what's the big idea, and how geospatial can play a part in the company.
Absolutely. Hey guys, I'm Ajay from NextBillion AI. So we are enabling location AI for enterprises. Currently, the challenge according to us is one map doesn't fit all. If you look at the way food is delivered in Singapore versus India versus how parcels are delivered to you, the roads taken, the routes taken, the overall ETAs, everything is very different, but underlying mapping technology has not changed in a long time. So the base map is extremely different for every company. So the way we are envisioning this problem is to make a decentralized, modular, and a customized mapping ecosystem. Just think of every company having their own maps totally built using their proprietary data and open data together, eventually powering a set of mapping tools, APIs, applications, and eventual backend ecosystem for the enterprises. So that's what we are about. We are an end-to-end mapping platform, and I'm very excited to be here.
Great. Thanks, AJ. And finally, happy to introduce as well Hon from Volocopter. He's the head of Singapore and Business Development, Southeast Asia. And he is, he's been with GeoWorks for quite some time. And I'm happy to introduce him to the audience today, to the audience today. Hon, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Michael, and thanks again for the organizers for inviting us, to this webinar. So as Michael mentioned, my name is Hon Chu. I am the head of Singapore and business development for Southeast Asia for Volocopter. So you probably have heard of us before if you've been around in GeoWorks. We are a German air taxi company, and we expect to enter service here in Singapore at the end of next year or the beginning of 2023 timeframe. I'll take a little bit more time to explain kind of our idea and how geospatial is relevant for us, because when you think about what we do, right, the idea is pretty simple. It's really just to fly over the urban congestion, pollution, right, as well as getting around the unsustainable transportation in most of the mega cities of the world. And we've come a long way since 2011, and the first commercial air taxi that we'll be launching here in Singapore, the Volo City, is actually our 4th generation vehicle. We also have a drone, right, called the Volo drone. And so we do believe, right, that drones, although they're very different by safety standards, will share what we call the low altitude airspace. Which has a combination of ground and air issues, which is where we believe the geospatial elements of the service comes into play. I'll point out 3 very specific examples. When you're looking at the low altitude airspace, certainly ground obstacles serve as a huge, an important piece to safety. We want to make sure we're avoiding all the easily avoidable stuff, buildings, bridges, the Singapore Flyer, and perhaps the cable car. And so having that information, accurate obstacle information, is critical to us. The other piece that I think is really important is also traffic, right? And I think I'll point out 2 examples of how traffic is important to us. The first one is, of course, based on time savings, right? So we, our whole theory is that we're able to offer you a faster way of getting to your destination via the air. And so being able to accurately calculate the time savings goes a long way to ensuring that we're offering the right routes for our customers. But the other way that I think is also interesting is actually on driver distraction, right? So as we're looking at operating in a low altitude airspace where our aircraft is potentially visible to the ground, we also need to consider the impact if a driver is somehow distracted by the aircraft, as they're driving along an expressway. And we are in the initial stages of evaluating our route here in Singapore, but that is certainly one of the factors that we're considering. And having accurate traffic data on the expressway will allow us then to accurately measure and calculate the number of drivers that are potentially distracted by the aircraft flying overboard, and then hence allow us to really quantify the risk that's posed by the service that we offer. So I think those are 3 examples I'd just like to quickly offer as to how geospatial is relevant for an airspace and a air taxi company like us. And with that, Michael, I'd like to pass it back to you, and I look forward to the webinar.
Great, thank you very much, Hong. Perhaps I should pause here and ask if you have any questions regarding the webinar. Please submit your questions using the Q&A function. Please also indicate where you're from and your name as well. Okay, so perhaps you can just kick things off. I mean, geospatial has been around for quite some time in Singapore itself, and it is especially important when you're tying a lot of the Singapore's ambition to become a smart city, that geospatial becomes one of the core elements to create new businesses and new solutions itself. So maybe I can start off with Louis. In your opinion, how do you see Singapore as an environment to adopt many of the geospatial solutions or geospatial technologies out there?
I think geospatial is definitely a very interesting and fundamental piece of technology that most companies or agencies will definitely benefit to deploy, right? But I think more importantly, the government's Smart Nations drive has definitely pushed various industries to embrace digitization, right? Because this Smart Nation drive has instilled an innovation mindset among Singaporeans and organizations. So when we have that, mandate from the government, right, and really bringing the flag on and saying that let's look at this technology and how to really bring us forward, right? I think that is really a very clear sign of leadership that the government has brought forward, right? To add on, okay, I think our progress with MOE, Ministry of Education, right? Is also something that we would like to highlight, right? So we do have a partnership with MOE that we are integrating GIS as an education module into the school curriculum, right, to enhance the development of the students' spatial thinking skills, right? This is extremely important. Just imagine, right, secondary school students who are learning geography now have access to GIS technology, right? I mean, back in the days when we first started, when we talk about geography, right, who would have expected that, hey, let's have fun with the GIS, right? But today, wow, it's so exciting for the students who live in the digital world that they have this technology that, is really at their fingertips and really being able to do so much more, right? To visualize this, to be interactive and so on. So I definitely believe that this will definitely transform the way how, Singapore as an environment for geospatial technology. Right. And of course, by building the nation of young spatial thinkers, right, we can definitely look forward to a generation of innovators who will test the boundaries of what geospatial technology can do. So today, we have definitely deployed, geospatial technology in many different areas. But, looking forward, 10 years, 20 years, right, this new innovation, this new generation of innovative thinkers definitely will take it to the next boundary, right? Especially where, in the areas of AI, in the areas of IoT, and things like that, trying to put all these different kind of technologies together. I'm sure the synergy of such technology, right, would definitely transform the whole industry as well, right? Thanks, Michael, back to you.
Okay, is your current collaboration with MOE something that is already live, or is that upcoming?
That's already live.
Okay, so maybe you want to plug for it in terms of where people can get more information about this?
Oh, yes, I think we have a link that's on the Esri news, right? So it's called Singapore Building Nation of Young Spatial Thinkers, right? So I'll be happy to share that link to everybody.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
AJ, what it's great that Esri is actually going into helping a lot of the young professionals get a better idea of what geospatial is all about. Do you find this kind of initiative very valuable, especially now that you are going into artificial intelligence using geospatial technology?
Yeah, I think it's extremely valuable also because as Louis was saying, geography was always a boring subject in school. So the fact of the matter, they're making it interesting is very good for the future companies, because even today, the biggest challenge we have is talent pool in this domain, right? Very few companies or very few enterprises really have the pool and the technical expertise to play with the tools also. It's a very complicated, different field. I think it's becoming more and more fun. It used to be looked at it as a very, oh my God, it's a very complicated field. But right now with the technology evolving, the UI is evolving, I think there's a lot of fun element to playing with maps. It's almost gamified in a way. So I think it's going to be excellent that the government has taken this step and they're actually including it as a part of school curriculum. That is, I think, very progressive. We have seen the same with most of the advantages of setting up in Singapore ourselves, right? Like we have GeoWorks, who we can always back on for support. We're already working with SLA and trying to find out all the missing pedestrian navigable paths in Singapore currently. So we are trying to work on certain initiatives, even on the 3D positioning and mapping front. So that way, I think the whole ecosystem is probably one of the most advanced. I work in 6 countries now, and some of the most advanced ecosystem I've seen, especially for mapping and GIS. And frankly, OneMap is a much better map than most commercially available maps currently. We bank off on OneMap data a lot too. So I think, yeah, it's great to see all of this coming together finally.
Okay, great. Do you think that, I mean, how will all this, I mean, do you, when you've opened a new startup, new company, did you find it very challenging to introduce your big idea to many of the, I would say, traditional users?
That's always a challenge, especially when you're market making in some way, because maps were always thought to be of 2 things, right? Either, oh my God, the extremely technical government defense sort of use cases use maps, or consumers like me and use maps. Like, we navigate, we find places, like, but the middle layer where enterprises, which large B2C companies use maps, is always been a new niche domain. That's not been, it's been taken for granted for a long time, thinking that existing providers can easily do that. So in that way, it's always challenging to introduce a new sort of a vertical into the market. But I feel being in Singapore and having local partners there who get technology has been a great advantage for us. So that way, be it any of the enterprise SG Tech, GeoWorks, all have been super supportive all through, even in fact, making introductions via them for us. So I think having a startup in Singapore has its own advantages.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hon, talking about new markets, air taxis is very, well, it's cutting edge, if not way ahead. What do you think about the geospatial industry here? How could the capabilities here help to support some of your ambitions in Singapore?
Yeah, I would echo what Louis and AJ mentioned already. I think the skilled workforce, right, is certainly a very key aspect that we look for when we're entering a particular country. I would say the other thing I was mentioned right already, OneMap and OneMap 3D, as well as I would say the broader government services, right, a trusted public service platform that's provided by a very well functioning government. Is really unparalleled, right, in countries around the world, and that really does help, right, us with our geospatial operations as well as planning. I guess the one other thing that I would add to that, right, is of course pointing out Singapore as the market entry or as the reference point for the rest of the region, right. Aviation in particular is a very international industry. And standards, are adapted very easily between different countries. And so when we think about how we develop a route, how we avoid obstacles, how we calculate time savings, all of those different methodologies that are being now done, right, as a part of our launch here in Singapore. Those methodologies, right, and the data and the processes that are being used will be then replicated across the region, right? And those will serve as the reference point for us. And we believe that that actually is, a big boon for the Singapore economy as it continues to be this, high knowledge, high value, workforce for the rest of the Southeast Asia region. And I think that what SLA, right, and the rest of the geospatial community doing is really only to further that reference point for the region.
I believe Volocopter has a couple of trials in other cities as well around the world. What do you think is the main difference when doing a business here in Singapore versus some of the other cities itself? Any advantages or challenges that you face?
Yeah, I think, from an advantage perspective, the size of Singapore, as well as just the efficiency and effectiveness, right, of the government really helps. Being a relatively small place, right, but with a very effective government, because in most cases, when you're trying to launch a service like ours, it requires coordination with multiple agencies. And so, the small size in that case helps, quite a bit. But also, of course, with the high quality, right, of the public service that's available with OneMap 3D, that data otherwise would cost millions, right, to obtain and millions to stay up to date, right? Mm-hmm. And so really that then is a huge value add for any company that needs to leverage geospatial data as part of their business because it's already there for you, and you can use it readily. And I'm sure Louis and AJ would agree with me on that point.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Louis, in your opinion, what are the types of challenges do you see coming up over the next couple of years when it comes to the adoption of geospatial data or technology?
I think I cannot emphasize enough like what AJ and Hon has mentioned, which is the greater need for this talents, right? Because there's greater and greater demand for geospatial education and professionals in the growing geospatial scene, right? Definitely, we need more and more of such talent, right, to be able to bring this forward, right? I mean, technology is always a very interesting piece. There's always new tech coming out, and the young generation are always torn between, wow, there's something fun over here, there's something fun over there, and of course, geospatial is something that is continuously evolving and changing. And I think this is where we can help to use geospatial as a technology to anchor some of this, be it AI, be it machine learning, be it IoT technologies together, right? So the challenge here of the greater demand, right, needs to be met with development, cultivating of the next generation of spatial professionals, right? So for us, we are doing our part, hoping to alleviate some of this, which was we launched our own Baustat Geospatial Scholarship with NUS, right? So hopefully with such a scholarship, we are able to cultivate some of these talents, right, who will be able to help to meet such of this part of this demand going forward. We also have relevant partnerships with our NUS School of Design and Environment, right, to help them with an innovation lab to let them understand, how can they use geospatial as a part or as a part of their architecting, their design, environment process, and to incorporate as a part of the school curriculum and making it something that is going to be, as familiar to them as pen and paper, right? Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Go ahead. Do you have something?
So there was one last part was that, recently we launched a GeoBeam certification course. We partner with our one of our partners, which is Beamage Consulting. So they are really good at all this beam models, processing, the design, and so on, right? So we did a GeoBeam certification course, And we came up with the curriculum together and we launched it to the market. And we have received, exciting responses. And we have completed the first round, and we have lined up the next 3 rounds to go. Right. Okay. Thanks.
Great. How about okay, in your opinion right now, what kind of industries would you think will be very receptive to some of your solutions currently? I mean, is there like an industry that is currently growing rapidly versus some other industries?
I think geospatial technology does benefit certain industries that have geospatial needs. So for example, when we talk about retail, we talk about supply chain, we talk about distribution, we talk about risk management, assessment, insurance, health. So a lot of these industries, right, definitely, the geospatial technology will definitely help them to better understand the landscape, right, the risk that's involved. And from there, they will be able to get a better understanding of their environment and the impact to their business, right? So by overlaying these different layers of information that is relevant to their business, right, they are better able to get the right understanding and awareness. And providing them with geospatial analytical tools, right? This helps them to generate the insights that they need to understand for their business.
Okay, AJ, do you think that those industries are the ones that you will find that are very receptive to something that what Next Billion is doing right now?
So our first go-to-market has always been the more tech-focused sort of mobility, micro-mobility, food delivery, logistics sort of industry, where location is at the heart of everything, right? Like this is not something like you make a map, but you use a map all day, every day, and use it for core technology powering, batching, allocation, pricing. So everything is done on a location ecosystem. So we have targeted them initially, as we're also small, we're just about 10 months old. So our core go-to-market has been that. We have mostly worked with the more technical side of businesses, the teams that already have technology inside, but we're enhancing efficiency, throughput. That is more our pitch, because existing infrastructure is not enough to scale. Let's say you want to do 100 millions of rides a day. Existing infra is just not enough. Even if it's enough, it is super expensive to scale for these companies. So that is the problem we are trying to solve in our company. So how do you get great throughput, great efficiency at a super reasonable cost, and also make sure that it is customized to your business, right? You need, for example, very simple example is footpaths. If footpaths are not digitized, scooters can't deliver food. It's simple. So the route that is calculated on a road that a car drives. So this is a very basic problem. When you look at it at a global scale, there's a lot of work to be done still in this regard.
Okay. Okay, but I guess my question actually would be also in terms of, you've kind of highlighted some, I think you said any kind of food delivery app or transportation solutions will be probably the early adopters for this technology.
Correct.
How about things like retail or potentially, I don't know, in terms of advertising and marketing kind of thing, where they might use the type of demographic data that you can capture for this kind of
So the two interesting use cases we worked on, was one for retail advertising. Like, for example, you enter a specific geofence and we create these very specific geofences, and you sort of show specific ads in those geofences, right? Because you use it for marketing efforts. Similarly, on the retail front, what we've done on the deliveries is large scale condos, because usually come to Singapore, you have 24 towers, you have basements, you need to go up the lift. How do you do hyper local mapping? This data set is not usually available commercially anywhere. So these are these two interesting use cases in retail that we have solved. The other very interesting use case is private mapping, right? Let's say you're a government. You have defense barracks that you do not want to put out somewhere, but usually defense barracks are hundreds of hectares. You have a lot of routes inside, a lot of things inside. So how do you map all of those? So these are those 2-3 more interesting non-techie verticals we've explored and are seeing great reception, because map making as a domain, again, has always been thought of as geeky and something that requires a lot of effort. But what we have built as an ecosystem is very simply, how do you digitize maps even without zero training? So that's where we are seeing a lot of interest. Okay, great. How about Hon? I guess you're already quite fixed into your urban air mobility sector. Do you see also applicable and other types of applications that can be, or other industries that can be using some of the technology that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, I think, you know, we are, you know, even though we are in the aviation industry, we are part of the transport industry, right? The broader transport industry. We're in the air transport industry. So I think the calculation, right, of time savings as well as convenience is critical for us. When we are, you know, evaluating, there's talks of, you know, obviously building our ports, right, our Volo ports, where people will board and disboard the aircraft. Those could be on ground, of course, but those could also be on top of rooftops, right, of buildings. And so when you consider that, right, we want to really get a very accurate picture, right, of how long does it exactly take, right, for someone to get off, you know, however they're coming from, whether that's by foot, by bike, you know, or by car, right? Once they get that off, how far do they have to walk into our Volo port? And then from there, right, you know, board our air taxi and then get to their destination Volo port. And then, you know, how far do they have to go then from the other mile, right? So this multimodal type of transport is critical for us. And obviously, besides, you know, whatever happens in the air while the aircraft is in the air, everything else is geospatial oriented. And we think that, you know, we can leverage really a lot of the great work that the existing industry has already done, right, in terms of, you know, sidewalk mapping, you know, in terms of car traffic, to really then help us, you know, get to an answer, get to a very accurate estimate of the time it takes end to end, you know, from point A to point B, you know, without, you know, reinventing the wheel ourselves.
Great. Okay, I think we have some questions that have been submitted. So maybe we can see if we can address some of these questions. First one that came in was Mark Tan. Are the barriers to entry very high in the geospatial industry in terms of licensing and qualifications? Maybe Louis, you want to take that?
Yeah, so I was reading this question as well. Barriers of entry very high in the geospatial in terms of licensing and qualifications. So I guess there is definitely a certain level of expertise. I'm hoping that I'm answering in the right direction, right? You know, because we talk about qualification, so I'm assuming that it's about talent qualifications, right? So yes, definitely there's a certain level of expertise that's definitely required. But you know, inherently, right? The very fundamental thing is that, you know, all of us are actually very, I like to call us as spatial creatures, right? You know, we move in a 3D world, right? You know, the X, Y, Z axis, right? And inherently, you know, a map really helps us to make sense of this world, right? So apart from qualifications, you know, the passion for such a technology, to understand this piece of technology, to help us, I think that's very important. And to talk about licensing, right? I guess this is more about, you know, adoption of the different type of software, where we talk about the different licensing. So I guess that, I mean, the technology has moved forward in many different areas. So no longer we are attached to cumbersome pieces of, you know, heavy client technologies, but, you know, today there's a lot of SaaS type of services that we offer as well. Right, so you know, the barriers of entry should be, I would say, you know, relatively low context.
Yeah, I would think also that there's a lot of if you are introducing geospatial at an early age, the qualifications will naturally improve over time, because when they graduate out from, say, primary school to secondary school to tertiary, the capabilities are already inherent in the studies that they've already gone through. There's another question from apologies if I'm mispronouncing your name, Adam from Palestine. Would like to ask about the role of open source tools in the geospatial ecosystem. So maybe that's a question that I can ask maybe AJ and Hon to see, are you guys using some form of open source tools in your solutions?
Yeah, we are totally an open source based solution in any case. So we use a lot of the tools that the open source ecosystem does provide. We use ID editor sometimes, we use GeoSM, we use QGIS, a lot of the open source ecosystem. Also, the good part is that since a lot of the code is there, we can customize it as required for a lot of use cases. So that has been the biggest challenge that many of the companies globally have faced. So I feel open source as an ecosystem for us, in our thesis, it's the future. OSM and building off of OSM and a lot of applications that can be there. Because maps in general, the way we look at it is that maps is easy to build, difficult to maintain. And I think the only way to do it is to really involve the power of crowd, right? So I feel it's going to be a very important ecosystem to nurture, keep active, contribute, work together in the future. Absolutely.
Okay. How about Han? How about you?
Yeah, I think I need to put more of an aviation perspective, right, to this data and to the open source, the idea of open source, for better or worse, right? I don't think it's accurate, right? Open source has been traditionally thought of as less reliable and somehow less. There's no warranty, right, expressed or implied or otherwise. You always see those legal terms, right, when you're using open source software. And when we are building software, so Volocopter, we are building what we call the Volo IQ platform, which is really going to be a digital twin, right, of the space that we operate in. And unfortunately, that does need to be certified by the aviation agencies. For us, there's only it's unfortunate for us, right? There's only a few of companies in the world that offer this type of aviation grade map data that we can use, right? That we can then turn around to the agencies and say, look, we are, everything we do, the way we code, the data that we use, everything we do is aviation grade and is certified, right, to that level of accuracy. And so, unfortunately, the reality is because of aviation regulation, we are not able to fully take advantage, right, of open source software and data. But honestly, that is something that I think we need to change, and that is something that I think would really help to really improve the safety case for our service if we're able to more liberally take advantage of crowdsourcing data and open source software.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question is from Ng Jian, and actually this is actually one of the next topics we're going to go into in terms of how we would partner the industry, whether you are an end user or maybe you have a solutions that you can collaborate with. So Ng Jian says that I represent a locally established food delivery company, and we are a company that looks at a different way of entering the market. However, we are undermined by a certain stage due to a lack of many factors. Okay. How can we work alongside some of your interesting solutions to create something different, creating some different locally? So I think it comes to a matter of how do you see partnerships occur in Singapore itself, especially when, I mean, we are all experts. I mean, you are experts in the geospatial sector. So some of them may be aware what can happen using geospatial technology, and others may not be so fully aware. So I know, for example, Esri, you have a lot of partnerships, whether you're either as an end user customer or as an industry partner. What are some collaboration opportunities can there be for, say, a startup who is looking to open up a business?
Okay, I think for a startup who's looking to do business, I think the costs and revenue is going to be the bread and butter of this company, right? But of course, it needs to establish its own competitive advantage, right? And if it's a food delivery business, right, geospatial technology is going to be something that's going to be important, right? So so questions like what AJ has mentioned earlier, how do I get the nearest resources? How do I deliver in the shortest path possible, and things like that. These are critical and essential components of the business. You cannot imagine if a food delivery resource has to basically go through a 10 times longer route just to deliver that food, and that is going to be so much less effective and eroding away any profits in between, right? So I think to really, for them to enter this market, they should look at what are going to be some essential components that they need in order for them to build up the capabilities of their business to make them competitive, right? So that would be my suggestion here.
Okay. AJ, as a newly created startup, how have you approached the partnership question?
So we actually, every customer of ours is a partner because, as I said, we build custom maps for them. So we need to work together. We don't give a DIY solution and say you build on top, we won't do anything. We just take our APIs. So that way, every customer of ours is a partner. Every customer of ours has a different problem. As Louis was mentioning, as even in the question they mentioned, as food delivery problems are so different because you have a three-stop system, not a two-stop system. When you compare to ride hailing, where you just have a customer and a car, right? Here you have a customer, restaurant, and a car. So many of these operations, when you go in depth, is such a technically hard problem to solve without partnerships and without data being sort of shared between us and our customers. It's going to be very tough for us to solve some of these problems. So I feel the most advice we give to people is that why don't you start with something existing, run the business for a while, understand what are the nuances, then come and we can solve the problems when you reach a certain scale. So I guess if you're a startup and you're anyway starting off in a specific vertical, using existing resources is always better, because there's no point of going to something new when we are ourselves new. So we tell them very transparently, use something that's there already, then we can optimize the last 1%, 2%, 3% for you.
Okay. Curious question. How long did it take you to come up with the concept of Next Billion to the actual creation of the company and, coming up with an idea of leveraging of existing solutions to deliver the solution?
So we, all of us founders, were a little bit of map geeks. I spent 5 years at Google, like a bunch of us spent some time at Grab. So we knew and lived and breathed this problem a little. So for us, I guess it took about 9-10 months to actually come up with the system. The engineering and the AI system is a little complicated to build, but apart from that, I think the know-how of the domain was there. That is same thing what Louis and Horn were saying. If you do not have the know-how of the domain, it's a very difficult just enter and solve sort of a problem. It's not a 0 to 1 engineering problem. So that's where I think our time to market was a little quicker at Next Billion.
Okay, great. Okay, maybe we've got about 5 minutes left, so maybe we can do one or two more questions. From Christopher So, basically a question about how 5G will change the dynamics of the geospatial industry and from a cost perspective. Maybe I can start with AJ since you started talking, and then I'll go on to the others.
I feel it's going to be very interesting. Again, I am not still as advanced to understand all the applications of 5G, but I feel with more things getting connected and crazy data speeds, the probes will improve definitely. So the detections on the models will definitely improve as just a basic thing what we talk about, right? The phone infrastructure will improve. Everything around just GPS and probes and the detections and everything being connected is going to improve. I feel it's going to be very, very interesting to see someone like Volocopter also that time come in, and where you have things also flying by that time and we're actually transporting people. So that whole relationship from flying, as they said, to getting down from the building, to walking, to taking a metro, then coming out, that whole ecosystem is going to be super interesting to see what happens, because as of today, we still have not solved multimodal problem. We have solved single, maybe dual modal problem. Even today, you don't get a great route if you have to say, how do I route somebody from CBD to somewhere in Bedok using 4 modes of transport? Super difficult problem, right? That is something I feel would be very interesting to see with 5G coming up.
Okay, great. Hon, is Volocopter looking at 5G as well?
Yeah, I'll actually flip the reference. I think what AJ mentioned as well, but a different aspect, right? Which I think is the volume of data that's being generated, and how that then affects the crowdsourcing piece. I think with us, when our volocopters are flying in the air, we expect many of them, right, to be doing that, and we certainly welcome the opportunity, right, to consider contributing back, right, to the geospatial community, where the video and the picture data that we would have to capture anyways, right, while the aircraft is in flight, how that can then feed back into OneMap 3D or other maps. To allow for this really constant update, right, to on a minute-by-minute basis of how the ground obstacles are changing, and we think that has huge potentials to really take at least certain areas, of geospatial a huge leap forward for improving the map and then keeping it up to date.
Great. Okay. I think we'll probably need to wrap things up. So maybe I can invite all the panelists to maybe say a few last words. Hopefully, this has been an informative session for the attendees, and maybe we can start with Louis.
Thanks, Michael. Again, just to wrap things up, again, I'd like to thank everybody, right, for the opportunity here. Again, honored to be here and happy to meet up and take any other questions that you may have. Feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or any channels. Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. AJ?
Hey guys, thank you so much for organizing this again. It's been an honor to be on the same panel and just have a chat with everyone about such a small startup that we have. So it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much. And it was, as always, organized incredibly well by all of you.
Thanks, AJ. And Han?
Yeah, I'll echo what Louis and AJ said, and I'll put a quick plug in, that we'll be launching our service by the end of next year, and look forward to, our tickets going on sale and welcoming everybody on board our aircraft.
Great, looking forward to that. All right, before I hand it off, there was this discussion just now about partnerships, right? And one of the most important things about a partnership is to be able to meet with other people. And I'm basically throwing it across to the folks at Montgomery, Asia, who are organizing a conference coming up in March, where you will actually get to meet many of the people in the geospatial, many companies in the geospatial sector. So maybe what I can do first is to hand it over to Jess, and Jess, you can take over and introduce Rupert.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael, and to our geospatial industry panelists, right, for the very active discussion and insightful sharing. So next up, we would like to invite Rupert Owen, Event Director and Partner, Geoconnect Asia at the Montgomery Group, to share with us, what are some of the exciting opportunities that companies can expect at the upcoming inaugural Geoconnect Asia. Rupert, over to you.
Thank you, Jaziri. Michael, that was a great session. Fantastic to see so much activity. I can now put my geography degree to greater use than it was undusted from the shelf again, because it's got many new applications. We're also a startup. Geoconnect Asia is an event in Singapore, which was launched actually 2 years ago. Unfortunately, we couldn't run it last March, so we're now relaunching it. And we are just a few days away from having it hosted in Marina Bay Sands on levels 4 and 5. Like many startups, it's a long journey, but we've had fantastic support from the industry, from SLA, GeoWorks, but also commercial sponsors. We have Trimble, Bentley, Planet, and we have about 40 other organizations who are supporting us commercially. And we have a great partnership on a regional and global basis. We're expanding into all the vertical sections of business, government, and influencers in the geospatial and location intelligence world. And I think what we're putting on will hopefully be the first opportunity for probably 12 months to have a face-to-face meeting in Singapore combined with a hybrid platform. Everybody is very, very interested in seeing people face to face, and we are trying to create the conditions with all the support of the authorities in Singapore to enable this event to happen. And we're lining up a great conference program, more than 40 speakers from around the world. Some will be in Singapore live, some will be virtuals, but it will all be live delivery with a lot of panel sessions. Hopefully as good as the one today. We're very excited by our lineup. We have about 25 speakers so far lined up, and we will be announcing the program probably in about 3 weeks' time in a fuller version. But amongst our lineup of speakers, we have Bart de Lactoire from Belgium, President of the Open Geospatial Consortium, Philip Kandal from GeoGrab in Singapore, Dr. Winnie Tang from Hong Kong on the Smart City Consortium, David Henderson, Chief Geospatial Officer, Gordon Survey UK, Farizan Davizak-Tamaran from Green A Consultants in Singapore. So we have, and then we have Planet, one of our sponsors as well, the Chief Operating Officer for Planet speaking. So these are just the start. And we're building up a great story, and we hope everybody on the panel today will be able to join us as well. In terms of how it works, we are in the process of reading and working on many documents regarding health regulations in marina-based sands. It is quite an operation, I can tell you, but we are getting there. And it's going to be based upon on level 5 of marina-based sands. We are taking over the main ballroom up there with a hybrid studio on location. So all the 500 delegates will be by invitation. We have an allocation of 200 from overseas, outside Singapore, but the conference, the 2-day conference, will be live streamed, and we're making a very big investment in this event. This is going to be serious live streaming, and therefore the audience will be global. So companies who wish to participate will be able to invite some of their customers or potential customers globally to attend the event virtually, in person, or in a hybrid mix, or whichever works on the day. But it should be good. We've had good experience on recent webinars about attracting global audiences, and we're just a few steps away from pulling this one together. So in combination with level 5, where we have the main event for the conference, we have on level 4, we have the main exhibition area, which actually is a series of meeting pods. So the whole event will be focused around matchmaking. It will be timed appointments with a concierge service to enable companies to be able to optimize the time they have over 2 days. We want to crash course everything into 2 days because we believe the attention span and the interest around the event will serve everybody to better use, better purpose, and at the end of the day, create more opportunity. And there are so many events on at the moment. Ours will be a chargeable conference. The event is chargeable, but we also believe that the quality will justify the expenses to delegates. And of course, if you come and participate, we will put together a very attractive package, which will include the Singapore Pavilion, and SG Tech have been very successful and worked very hard to attract the support of Singapore Enterprise, so that companies based in Singapore and eligible for the pavilion will be able to draw back up to 70% of the cost of their participation. And we, as organizers, will also add value by offering a virtual exhibitor platform so that you can also tune in to and meet up with companies who are interested in meeting you virtually. So you have a combination of in-person meetings plus the virtual platforms. And in addition to that, we will live stream in the lunch hour of the second day of the show, have a tech talk stage in the main conference. So it's going to be for the first 6 companies who sign up to join the pavilion, we will offer a great package. For hopefully the many that follow, we'll also offer a great package. But we particularly are interested in those who've got great ideas on entrepreneurial companies, of which we know there are many in Singapore and Southeast Asia who wish to do business through Singapore, and the Singapore Pavilion is a great way of doing that. So please come and join us. Our team is based in Singapore. I'm actually in London. I'm trying to get to Singapore. It's going to take a bit of effort, but I need a sponsor. And but we have a great team in Singapore, headed up with marketing operations. We're adding to the team as we go through. Mei Shan, who's on the call right now, is heading up business development and is very keen to talk to you. So please take a note of her number, or otherwise she'll be chasing you very soon. Or if not, please contact Jaziri at SG Tech. We're working very closely together, and we're very appreciative of this opportunity to be able to present ourselves with Michael and GeoWorks and other companies on the presentation. So I'd like to basically thank you for looking after us, and we look forward to seeing you on the 24th of March in Singapore and Marina Bay Sands. Jaziri, back to you.
Thank you, Rupert. Thanks, everyone. Once again, thanks to all the speakers, GeoWorks and Geoconnect Asia, for making this event possible. Before we end, we would like to invite our attendees to help us complete this short post-webinar survey. so that we can create more relevant content and improve for our future sessions. So as what Rupert has mentioned, Sgsat is leading the Singapore Pavilion at Geoconnect Asia. So if any companies here that are interested, you may also indicate on the survey form and we will reach out to you after the event to share more details. You can scan the QR code or enter the link on the screen to access the form. When you leave this webinar, you will also be redirected to the survey. Once again, thanks to everyone who stayed through with us till the very end. Yeah, we hope this session has been very useful and we hope to see you soon. Thank you to all our speakers and panelists. Take care and we hope to see you in person soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. Take care.